Hello everyone, my name is Awat, and today we're going to be doing Dev Diaries episode 12, or season 2 episode 2, whatever you want to call it. I'm not keeping count. But I'm going to be doing some housekeeping today, nothing too crazy. So first up we have a bug that I'm going to fix. Basically, Pillar of Atlas has some relics that spawn in the middle. It should be one per player, but sometimes it doesn't make it one per player as it's supposed to. So this is funny because originally I had it spawn as a random object. So when it spawns as a random object, there's not the same restrictions that a normal relic would have. So it led to some scenarios in which it would spawn really bad and ugly or just not spawn properly. And then in the AWAT Nomad update, I changed it back from being a random object kind of deal to a relic kind of deal, where when the game spawns it, it does consider that there is supposed to be one for each player, like designated to each player, kind of the same way it places town centers. And as a result, it would also space itself properly and have a good separation between them, not spawn in funky masses. And I tested it several times and I thought it was working fine, but recently I tried Pillar of Atlas again, and for some reason I kept getting error messages. And these error messages were surprisingly common too. It wasn't just like 1 in 100, it was like 1 in 4. And yeah, it was affecting the amount of relics that there was supposed to be. So sometimes there's supposed to be 8, but then only spawned 6. So to combat this, I've reverted back to its old version. You know, that old version that didn't work very well. And I gave it characteristics of the new version that also didn't work very well. And I guess 2 wrongs make a right, and now it works pretty well. I'm just kidding. That's a very gross oversimplification of what happened, but I thought it was funny. You think about it that way. Truthfully, what I did was I took the default avoid relic restrictions because, like I said, before Age of Mythology, I had little to no coding experience, so I was kind of making this stuff up as I go. But nowadays, I have more of an understanding as to these things work. But at the time, I was like, okay, this is the default relic restriction. I should keep it on the relic at all times just in case. But yeah, now I've gone ahead and just changed it to values that were less restrictive than the default relic restrictions, and now it basically works like a charm. But yeah, it would make sense that I would have less restrictive restrictions on these relics rather guns be cramped in a tight space compared to a normal relic which can be placed anywhere on the rest of the map. But yeah, while less experienced, I often limited myself to the restrictions that was found in the game's files. But now that I have a better understanding of how they work, I can change it whenever it's necessary. So sorry if I reinvent the wheel too many times. I'm trying my best though, regardless. And while we're on Pillar Atlas, I'm going to show you guys these new pear blossoms. I figured out how to put them on trees. I had been meaning to put pear blossoms on mountains for a while now because I assumed the white would go great with the gray. But the main issue was it being a skill issue and not being able to figure out how to put it on the mountains without them kind of like sliding off. But recently, Noted, sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, and hi, if you're watching this, thank you for commenting on some of my videos. They said that they like putting them on cliff tops. And I completely agree, and it was about time I tried it for myself. And so while developing something else for April Fools, I actually figured out how to do this. And yeah, I think it looks amazing. This serves no gameplay purpose, it's purely visual, but I really like how it looks. And you guys may have seen me using this on the Gaia version of AWAT Select if you guys saw the last video, where on Gaia's version of the map, she has peach blossom trees growing out the side of her hills. I'm going to show off here now, but I'm going to explain how I did it later, because this video already contains too much uneducated coding gibberish, and also because I actually figured out how to do this as part of the April Fool's video. So maybe I'll do the April Fool's video behind the scenes for our dev diary while we wait for the Aztecs. Because I'm not gonna lie, I think my maps are a lot less of a heaping pile of garbage than the state they were left in before my first season of Dev Diaries. So honestly, there's not as much to fix compared to the first season where I was fixing a bunch of stuff. So there might be less stupid stuff for me to yap about overall this time around for Dev Diaries compared to the last time, which is why I'd want to make the April Fools behind the scenes a different video. But moving on, I do intend to remove the AWAT's unusual map set as part of a housekeeping change this upcoming update, because what do you even define as an unusual map? Like I know some of them are definitely unusual, but some of the maps in the map set are just kind of unusual, like not too crazy. If anything, you probably want some of the maps from my map pack to be slightly unusual to keep the gameplay fresh every now and then. So yeah, to save myself the headache of updating what is considered unusual, I'm gonna be discontinuing that because a lot of people have different definitions of what is unusual anyway. I think just about most of my recommendations of what should be added or removed from the list has been different for each person. And the whole point of a set is to be generally applicable in some sort of way that's agreeable. So based on the fact that I don't want to consider what's weird, I don't want to restrict you guys from considering what you guys find weird and funny and want to play. Because for one person, they might hate like Fossa Parterrum, for example, but love Zero Enclosure. And so they won't play the set because it includes Fossa Parterrum. But then for another person, it might be vice versa. They might really like Fossa Parterrum but hate Zero Enclosure and therefore also won't play the set. Just seemed like an overall loss and hardly anyone was using it, since people's personal preferences would give a lot of reason to not use the set regardless of what combination is in there. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with having personal preferences of what maps you want to play. I have a lot of maps for that reason, so you can choose which ones you like and don't like. But the purpose of a map set is to be chosen, unlike individual maps where it's okay if some people don't like some of it. A map set's meant to be choosable for most people. But it's okay. If I'm being honest, the only reason why the unusual map set was there in the first place was because I wanted a row of map sets. Yep, I'm being honest, that's the real reason why I made it in the first place. I had all maps, and then all the maps excluding AWAT Unknown and AWAT Nomad. Then I had the standard maps, which don't even get me started on that. That already gives me a headache enough to maintain and decide what is even considered a standard map. So making me do that for unusual maps was kind of rough. But I just wanted to even it out at the time. Since as you know, in the map select screen, a row is 4 maps. But it's okay, I have a new map set that I think will go great in filling out the row. And this new map set will be for the Nomad type maps. Since in the April Fool's video, I jokingly said that I heard your guys' feedback that it was kind of disappointing there's only one Nomad type map for the Nomad update. And then as a joke in the video, I turned all my maps to Nomad type maps. I did actually hear the disappointment that there was only one Nomad type map and felt bad about that. So I am in fact making AWAT Unknown into a Nomad type map, which I did reveal at the end of the April Fool's video where I mentioned I was genuinely making that. So yeah, you'll be able to experience the randomness of AWAT Unknown in a Nomad type format now. But I didn't stop there. The AWAT Select I showed off in the previous video will support Nomad as well. I even made a balance change around the idea that it will be in Nomad in the future. So you know how in the previous video I said there would be a chance that the forest spawns at the edge, and then there's also a chance that the cliffs would avoid the center, and then there's a chance that trees would only spawn around cliffs. So if you were unlucky enough to have all 3 of those events occur, and then you somehow end up in the middle of a Nomad match, there will be no trees on the map since all the trees would be at the edge or attached to cliffs or also avoiding the center of the map. Although truthfully, it is unlikely because of the way that Nomad maps spawn you in, they would put you around the edge and not the center. But anyway, just in case you somehow end up in that situation, because even though I said it's unlikely, it probably could still happen. I added passings to AWAT Select. And passings, I'm going to show one on-screen example of it, but that's what they look like. But their edges count as cliffs, and so you get the version that spawns trees only at cliffs. They will still spawn at passings because the edges are considered cliffs. And then I made it so that regardless of what happens to the normal cliffs and the edge forest, the passings will still have a chance to spawn in the center, and therefore, regardless of what happens, you will have the opportunity to find wood in the center. Albeit slightly less wood, you will still have wood. So yeah, I think I can consider this map Nomad friendly, and I've already tried testing out Nomad variant of it, and it seems pretty good so far. Works as intended, so let's say you want a Nomad type map where peach blossoms are guaranteed, here you go. Here's a Nomad type map for that. Just set player 2 to Nuwa, and there you go. And then to finish out the Nomad map set, I will actually be implementing the April Fool's joke maps. Because if you recall in the April Fool's video, I did say I turned Bovine Lands, Peach Blossom Maze, and Mount Toa into Nomad type maps. And while there isn't any footage of that on screen, I did actually start progress on that. I just didn't finish for the video. But I do plan on adding them to the map pack in some way, shape, or form. But I definitely don't plan on having them as normal maps in my map pack since they're essentially just reskins of existing maps and they're meant to be a joke anyway. So right now I'm considering making them exclusive to Nomad map set, where if you use the map set, it's like a ludicrously small chance that you might get one of the April Fool's Nomad maps instead. But I'm going to be collecting feedback from people I play with online to see how they feel about that. And then another housekeeping change that I do intend to change to photos of the map sets. I got a bit that I think the AWAT map set and AWAT's otherworldly map set images look kind of rough at the moment, so maybe I'll change them. Probably. But there's a very slimmer of a chance I don't for some reason, and I'll probably say that later if I decide not to ultimately. And then the last housekeeping change for this video, since this video is getting long, I don't want my poor computer to render anything longer than 10 minutes. And that is, I'm changing the name of Already Stood after so many complaints. I did not know it was that serious, but a lot of you guys hate the fact that it would appear next to the other AWAT maps, like the non-normal ones, like AWAT Unknown and AWAT Nomad, and you guys also hated that it appeared close to the map sets. Someone said it wasn't as much as a problem before the AWAT Nomad update, since I only had AWAT Unknown as a quote-unquote special thing. But now with the introduction of map sets and AWAT Nomad as well, they kind of associate the top with being like the special part, and then the consistent individual maps would be underneath it. But Already Stood being an exception to that was pretty annoying. I was like, all right, that's fair. So right now I added a U in front of its name and removed the A so that'll relatively still sound and look the same. But let me know you guys have anything better you guys want to name it while still keeping it similar to the original so that people can recognize that's the same thing with its name changed. But that's about it for today's Dev Diary. It's basically just the normal stuff I gotta think about when I'm not making a new map while getting ready for the next update. But that's about it. Sorry it was a little boring, but thank you for watching and have a great day as usual.